Hi. All right. My name is Jana I am one of the founders of dVIN Labs. This is Dave Garrett.
Hi, I'm Dave Garrett. I'm another co-founder of dVIN Labs, and in the back here we've got Rodolfo Nerati, who's our third co-founder and the real wine nerd of the group. So if you want to talk about wine, he's the person to look for.
Yeah, go find him later for sure. He'll give you all the dirty secrets. All right. So dVIN Labs, founded in 2021. All about tokenizing investment grade wines. We've done pilots with over 40 different wineries and tokenized millions of dollars worth of wine. So over 1,000 bottles, or thousands of bottles already. And yeah, my background, by the way, I'm a sommelier, wrote my thesis on winemaking and climate change. Dave's the real tech guy here. I'm gonna lead the moderation. So I think we should start by talking about the size of the market, the size of the wine market.
Sure. Let me first start by saying I was a tech guy back in the 90s. I sold my company and dumped it into a vineyard and a winery in Argentina. And that's not investment advice, in case any of you are. So why are we talking about wine? So the wine industry is much bigger than anybody thinks it is. It's actually about $485 billion last year was the turnover, which if you take, the global, you're looking at discretionary spending, right? So you take the global film industry and the global television industry and the global publishing industry and the global music industry and the global video game industry, and you put it all together, it's still smaller than the global wine industry. People spend a lot of money on wine. But we're not really talking about all wine here, because most of it's like $1 a liter, you're drinking sangria on the beach in Barcelona, right? What we're really talking about is luxury wine, which is about $100 billion a year, or more importantly, investment grade wine, which is about $10 billion a year in turnover.
So size of the asset class.
Right. So that $10 billion a year. Well, you want to talk about the life cycle of an investment grade bottle of wine is like this. It usually leaves the winery at about $100 to $125 a bottle. Over the course of about 15 years, it'll change hands somewhere between 3 and 4 times. And by the time it's consumed, it'll cost about $800 a bottle. So it'll double in price nearly every time it changes hands. But what that means is that if the average lifespan of a bottle of investment grade wine is 15 years, that means that asset, and it's $10 billion a year, that asset class is about $300 billion. Really, really big asset class.
Yeah, and then how does it perform? I think we've got a chart. You've got the clicker. Next one.
That's for later.
Next one. That's looking good though. And how does wine perform against other assets?
So what's really interesting about wine, over the course of so wine has been traded in the secondary market for a long time. We're not really inventing anything new. Berry Brothers and Rudd has been trading wine in the secondary market for more than 300 years. Sotheby's has been trading wine in the secondary market for more than 50 years. So wine as an investment has been around for a long time. And just in the last, I guess, about 25 years, LivEx has been keeping track more or less of how it's performed. And as you can see here, other than the NASDAQ, it's performed pretty well against a wide range of assets, but with a lot less volatility.
Yeah, and so let's talk about why it makes sense to tokenize wine. We had a great example about whiskey. Why would you tokenize luxury wines or wine in general?
Sure. But let me actually start by saying that what we do at dVIN, first of all, we're 100% focused on just wine. But more importantly, how we're different from Baxis is we're really working a level down. We actually love Baxis. I'm a proud owner of one of those Lehman bottles. We're completely focused on wine, but we're kind of a layer down. What we're really focused on is building a universal protocol for wine so that every bottle of wine in the world can use the same protocol to be online, or can use the same protocol to be on chain. And what we think that does is it creates a unified liquidity pool so that you're able to have the data about whether it's price discovery, historical pricing, provenance, chain of custody, all of that information is common across every bottle of wine. So what we're building really is a way to enable every winery in the world. There are 30,000 independent wineries that make luxury wine. every auction house in the world to be able to have their own trading platform that uses a common protocol to put wine on chain.
And why is it cool? Let's talk a little bit about scarcity.
Yeah.
And why would you invest?
So wine is pretty interesting, right? There's a lot of interesting reasons to invest in wine. Everybody here understands scarcity. With wine, scarcity is both physical and regulatory, right? You can't, if you sell all of your wine, you can't just make more. You have to wait another year, and you're really limited in the amount of wine that you can make. These small investment-grade wineries, you're really limited in the amount of wine that you can make every year. It's limited by the number of grapes or the number of vines that you can have on that particular property. And a lot of times in places like Burgundy or Bordeaux or Napa or Piemonte, you're limited actually by the government. You're limited from a regulatory basis in how many and how much wine that you can make. So there's a real physical and regulatory limitation. And more importantly, what's interesting about wine as an asset is if you're lucky, you get to drink it, right? And as you drink that wine, there are fewer and fewer of those bottles. So that scarcity increases over time.
So would you say it's a little bit like meme coins, Dave?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So we actually had this conversation a couple of months ago, and wine's pretty interesting in that, you walk into a wine shop where you look at wine as an asset. Every bottle is the same, right? They're all the same size, they're all the same weight, they're all the same shape. They all have kind of the same utility, right? They'll all get you the same amount of drunk. So they're all pretty much the same. The only difference between one wine and the other is we all agree that first of all, that wine has scarcity, right? One wine might have the level of scarcity that wine has. And then the other thing is that we all agree that wine has value, that wine is of a higher quality and has value. So we all kind of have to agree. You need both attention and consensus that wine is valuable. So it's actually kind of interesting. We talk about alternative investments, and what we talk about a lot when we talk about wine is that it's really a bridge to the next generation of wine investors. Most wine investors today are boomers that have been doing it for a long time. I look at the people in this room and you think about other kinds of asset classes, right? If you wanted to invest in, let's say you wanted to invest $50,000 in real estate or in stocks or bonds or a mutual fund or an ETF or gold or diamonds or baseball cards. Anybody here could do that $50,000 investment in 20 minutes on their phone. But if you wanted to invest $50,000 in wine, in investment-grade wine, in an asset class that's a $300 billion asset class that has performed as well as the S&P over the last 20 years, you wouldn't be able to do it. Unless you know someone, nobody in this room would be able to invest $50,000 in investment-grade wine. That access has really been limited by a very small group of players. And by tokenizing wine, we think we can increase that access and bring a lot of unified liquidity into the marketplace. So, we think about the bridge to the next generation of wine investors. Young investors today are, priced out of the real estate market. If you look at the youngest investors, they don't invest a lot of times in traditional investments, stocks, the stock market or bond market, because they think that it's rigged by the big players. So we think that they're looking for investments where not only they get to make the rules, but they get asymmetrical information, right? They can have more information than other people. They look for investments that are experiential, that they can do with their friends, that they can do with other people. And we think wine is a really interesting way to look at an alternative investment for the next generation of investors. They can look at wine and they can go and get asymmetrical information. They can play in a space where really none of the big players, no big hedge fund can go in and buy investment grade wine. It's very difficult. It's a place where they can't play. So we think that wine, kind of like meme coins, right, is a way for the next generation of investors to play. And we think tokenizing wine kind of brings in and usher in a whole bunch of liquidity from that next generation.
Yeah, and just one more thing about that. Did I scare you?
No,
Did I
20,
startle you?
25 seconds
I
scared
know,
me.
Dave, you could talk forever. So another piece of that is like, even if you did have access to go out and be able to buy with $50,000 some wine, you want to be access, but it's not very easy to leverage it. It's almost impossible to leverage it. So tokenizing wine is that's a big piece of that. So really important. And now I'm going to cut to the chase. Can you please change the slide, Dave? Thank you very much. So we are launching VinCoin on Solana, and we're going to be launching that at some time in September, somewhere in Asia. So if anyone can do the simple math, you might figure out where that's happening. So if you guys want to come and see us, we're going to be pouring a really nice, rare grower champagne. And go and see Rodolfo. We're going to have a booth upstairs. Make sure you grab a glass of wine on the way, and just be sure that you claim this token, because it's going to get you an airdrop of VIN at the time of TGE.
And also, if you're interested in seeing kind of how, I know Todd talked earlier about like abstracting out all of the blockchain stuff. If you go to our little booth upstairs, you can actually claim what we call a tasting token, which is an authentic proof of experience. That's what you're going to get from this as well. But you can see kind of how the on-bottle tech works. So if you really want to kind of look and see exactly what we're doing, you can stop by the booth and you can get another tasting token and kind of see how easy it is to onboard.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Let's drink.